In the grand scheme of things, Scarlet and Violet base set was disappointing, but Paldea Evolved, launching on June 8th at 10 AM Pacific in Pokemon TCG Live, is the complete opposite. There's more meta-changing cards than I can count, all headlined by a brand new draw Pokemon in Squawkabilly EX and a powerful new supporter in Iono. In today's video, I'll be showing you every Paldea Evolved card you need to craft in PTCGL, how many copies you need, and how many credits you'll need to get them. Before we begin, the 2 free decks on the Paldea Evolved Battle Pass haven't been revealed yet. That being said, it's highly likely that several cards from the new set will be included in them, so make sure you claim the free decks on both the basic and premium battle passes before you craft any cards beginning on the 8th. The premium battle pass should still only cost 600 crystals, so complete 10 daily quests and you're good to go. Let's start with the supporters, or more accurately, let's start with Iono. Get 4 copies of this card immediately. A combination of N and Marnie, Iono says, each player shuffles their hand and puts it on the bottom of their deck. Then, each player draws a card for each of their remaining prize cards. So if your opponent has 2 prizes remaining and you have 6, then they put their hand on the bottom of their deck, then draw 2, while you put your hand on the bottom of your deck and draw 6. Japanese Gardevoir EX lists are running 4 copies of Iono, so get ready to see it a lot. And get ready to lose a lot of games because of it too. Seriously, if you're not prepared for a late game Iono with something like a Bibarel on your bench, you're gonna have a bad time. While nowhere near as good as Iono, the only other supporters to look at are Falkner and Giacomo. Falkner can be a draw 4 if you play a deck with a bunch of stadiums, while Giacomo discards a special energy from all of your opponent's Pokemon, which can be absolutely backbreaking against a Lugia V-Star or Mew VMAX deck. You should absolutely have 1 copy of Giacomo in your collection. Now we arrive at the special energy. There's 4 in total and all of them have their uses. Let's start with the most confusing of the bunch, Reversal Energy. Reversal Energy is extremely powerful, providing 3 energy of every type, but there are 3 stipulations that must be achieved first. Step 1, you have to be behind on prizes. Step 2, you can only attach it to an evolution Pokemon. And step 3, the Pokemon can't have a rule box. If you fail to meet all 3 requirements, the card only provides 1 colorless energy. But if all those factors are met, then you can attach Reversal Energy to a card like Wugtrio or Gardevoir and immediately attack with it. Obviously, there's plenty more Pokemon that want to use Reversal Energy, so craft 4 copies and start experimenting. Otherwise, you can be boring and just craft 1 copy to put in your Gardevoir deck alongside a copy of the new Luxray. Jet Energy is up next. Giving Lost Box access to yet another Switch card, Jet Energy provides a colorless and says, when you attach this card from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon, switch that Pokemon with your active. The regular versions of Lost Box really only need 1 copy, but the Giratina V-Star version can have as much as 4. That's because Giratina V-Star can send those potentially useless Jet Energy to the Lost Zone later in the game, while keeping your basic energy in the game. Luminous Energy is an interesting card. It provides 1 type of every energy, but if you have another special energy attached to the Pokemon Luminous Energy is attached to, then it becomes a colorless energy. You'll still want to own a copy or 2, especially if you want to revive the Reggie deck, but it's not something that will see a ton of play right now. And finally, there's Therapeutic Energy. It provides 1 colorless energy, and the Pokemon it's attached to is immune to confusion, sleep, and paralysis. The new Wigglytuff in Paldea Evolved can accelerate Therapeutic Energy, but you'll probably just want to include a copy or 2 in Lugia V-Star to protect against paralysis. As for the stadiums, get ready to see Artizone played in Lost Box decks, and any deck with a decent amount of single prize Pokemon. Artizon says, once during each player's turn, that player may search their deck for a basic Pokemon that doesn't have a rule box and put it onto their bench. The setup power here is amazing. While it can't get you something like Squawkabilly EX or a Radiant Pokemon, it can get a Comfey or a Ralts for your Gardevoir deck, or a Frigibax for your Chien-Pao deck, or a Bidoof for your Arceus deck. The downside is that your opponent can use it, but it's guaranteed to help your setup. Get at least 2 copies. The other stadiums in the set all have their uses, but none of them are must-haves. Calamitous Snowy Mountain puts 2 damage counters on basic non-water Pokemon when energy is attached from hand. Basically, it's a slightly more confusing Old Cemetery. Calamitous Wasteland increases the retreat cost of each basic non-fighting Pokemon by 1, perfect for Leafeon VMAX and Spidops EX. And Practice Studio increases the damage all Stage 1 Pokemon deal by 10. It might help fix some math, but it will require a lot of testing to see if it's better than something like Artizon. While it may seem a little weird to only be getting one new tool card in Paldea Evolved, it's a great one. Bravery Charm is basically just Cape of Toughness, except it boosts the hit points of any basic Pokemon by 50. This means you can use it in Expanded on a Tag Team Pokemon or in Standard on a basic Pokemon EX. You always have to worry about Lost Vacuum, but if Bravery Charm sticks, something like Chien-Pao EX goes from 220 hit points to 270. Or the Drifloon in Gardevoir EX can have 10 damage counters on it and deal 300 damage. Bravery Charm can make every single basic Pokemon better, so get 4 copies for a total of 400 credits. The best item cards in Paldea Evolved are both reprints. Super Rod is something we've been waiting for ever since Ordinary Rod rotated earlier this year. Super Rod's a little different, as it allows you to shuffle up to 3 in any combination of Pokemon and basic energy from your discard pile into your deck. You'll want to own at least 2 copies of Super Rod as it's super playable in so many decks and, yes, makes Lost Box even better. The other item card you want is Superior Energy Retrieval. This is definitely deck specific, but powerful nonetheless. By discarding 2 cards from your hand, you can put 4 basic energy from your discard pile into your hand. The only drawback is that you can't get back any cards you discarded with the effect of the card. For decks like Chien-Pao EX and Cherim, this is absolutely integral, allowing you to constantly have energy in your hand turn after turn. You'll want anywhere from 2 to 4 copies in your collection. Now we shift to the support Pokemon in Paldea Evolved. First up is a card that will make its way into several decks, Squawkabilly EX. This generation's multi-prize draw Pokemon like Dedenne GX and Crobat V, Squawkabilly is extremely balanced. The Squawkabilly says, once during your first turn you may discard your hand and draw 6 cards. You can't use more than one Squawk and Seize ability during your turn. While it's disappointing that Squawk and Squeeze can only be used on your first turn, and only once in total on that turn, the good news is that you really only need to own 1 copy of Squawkabilly at 600 credits. Sure, you could craft 2 if you're worried about prizing, or go with 4 if you really want to ensure you start with it, but it's a card that fits into a lot of decks out there and everyone can afford it. The attack on Squawkabilly isn't horrible, attaching up to 2 basic energy from your discard to one of your bench Pokemon. But with only 160 hit points, you'll likely want to get rid of it with Collapse Stadium or Thornton as soon as possible. Joining the likes of Miltank and Hoopa, Mimikyu is yet another Pokemon with damage immunity to certain multi-prize Pokemon. With Mimikyu, it's immune to damage from Pokemon V and Pokemon EX. This forces decks like Miraidon to play a single prizer like Pachirisu, otherwise they just lose the game because they can't do anything to it. Mimikyu only has 70 hit points and the attack only puts 7 damage counters on your opponent's active, so it's not going to last very long against single prize Pokemon. But you can literally just win a game by having it in your deck. Get 1 copy for now. Yet another card the Pokemon Company created to counter Mew VMAX, Spiritomb shuts off the abilities of all basic Pokemon V in play. The best part about Fettered and Misfortune is that Spiritomb doesn't have to be in the active spot for the ability to activate. It just has to be in play and shuts off Pokemon like Genesect V and Lumineon V. However, Mew VMAX can still get around it with Fusion Energy, so Mew still survives Spiritomb, but you'll have to run the Meloetta Fusion Energy build, and attach a Fusion Energy to a Genesect V to block Spiritomb's ability. Then there's Baxcalibur. Its ability is a reprint of Deluge Blastoise from the Black and White era, allowing you to attach a Water Energy from your hand to any one of your Pokemon as much as you want each turn. This is a clear upgrade over Frostmoth, which could only attach to benched water Pokemon. The downside is that Baxcalibur is a stage 2, so you'll want to play Rare Candy. And the best way to get the Rare Candy Baxcalibur combo is with Irida. I'm sure Baxcalibur will lead to a lot of interesting decks, but for now, the best partner is Chien-Pao EX with Superior Energy Retrieval. To finish up, we have Clodsire EX and Pelipper. Not must-haves by any stretch, Clodsire EX poisons your opponent's active if there's a stadium in play. We saw the same thing with Garbodor from Vivid Voltage. The advantage Clodsire has is that it can deal 200 damage, and because of the attack cost, you can put it into an Arceus V-Star deck. Or you can pair it with a Alolan Raticate and Reversal Energy for some one-hit KO shenanigans. Pelipper, meanwhile, is a Frankenstein-esque combination of Eldegoss V and Lumineon V rolled into one. When you play Pelipper from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you can get either a supporter from your deck or your discard pile. This would have been great a few months ago when Scoop Up Net was standard legal, but nowadays you're probably better off with Altaria from Evolving Skies. The most hyped attacker from Paldea Evolved is definitely Chien-Pao EX. Pairing perfectly with Baxcalibur, Chien-Pao does 60 damage for each water energy you discard from your Pokemon. To help you find that energy, Chien-Pao's ability, Shivery Chill, lets you get 2 water energy from your deck if Chien-Pao is in the active. By using Switch properly, you could get upwards of 6 energy in your hand in one turn. And if you're worried about Chien-Pao's 220 hit points, just attach Bravery Charm to increase it to 270. You can put several different attackers in the deck that either attack with water or colorless energy, but if you go for a Chien-Pao focused version, you'll want 3 copies of the EX. This might come as a shock, but the best attacking Pokemon from Paldea Evolved might just be the new Luxray. Super weird, right? The ability, Swelling Flash, if you ever feel a swelling, I don't recommend flashing anybody, puts Luxray directly onto the bench from your hand if you're behind on prizes. Then for 3 energy, it does 180 damage. Against Lugia V-Star and Lightning Weak decks, Luxray can take some big KOs. And the reason people in Japan are playing it in Gardevoir EX is because of Reversal Energy. Go behind on prizes, put Luxray into play, attach Reversal Energy, and start swinging. Or Lost Box is simply plain Lightning Energy in tandem with Mirage Gate. You only need 1 copy and it's a holo rare, so set aside 425 credits. After a brief hiatus, Dragon Pokemon are back in the Pokemon TCG. Noivern EX pulls double duty. The first attack makes it immune to damage from basic Pokemon the following turn, and the second attack stops your opponent from playing Special Energy or Stadium cards from their hand. If you manage to get an early dominating Echo off with Path to the Peak in play, you literally win the game against Lugia V-Star. And a deck like Gardevoir EX will absolutely hate to see a Path Echo combo. Despite how good it seems on paper though, you'll probably just want to craft 1 copy for 600 credits and include it in a Regidrago V-Star deck. Yes, I know this image looks kinda weird. Because only certain Paldea Evolved cards have been revealed in English so far, I'm using those plus translations from Justin Basil, hence the different names for United Wings. But United Wings is the latest version of Mad Party, except it's a slightly worse version of Mad Party, only giving us access to 3 Pokemon with the attack instead of 4. If you have to attack with one of the 3, I'd recommend Murkrow since it only requires 1 Darkness Energy, but honestly Ditto will be your main attacker here. It can copy Murkrow's attack from the discard pile, is searchable with Level Ball, and can be brought back with Rescue Carrier. You'll of course want at least 1 copy of Heavy Ball, just keep in mind that the deck tops out at 240 damage with 12 United Wingers in the discard, so you're going to be 2-shotting a lot of things. Now we come to an attacker with potential that might not see a ton of play. Taingloo EX has a great ability, shutting off the abilities of all your opponent's Pokemon with damage counters on them, except Pokemon V. So something like Gardevoir EX doesn't have to worry about Taingloo, but Comfey, Bibarel, Skwovet, Radiant Greninja, Radiant Charizard, Arceus V-Star, Lugia V-Star, Regieleki VMAX, Raikou V, Genesect V, and so much more do have to worry about it. You can try and use Gapejaw Bog to shut down your opponent's abilities on their turn, spread damage counters around where you want them with Radiant Alakazam, and put damage counters into play with Hawlucha. It takes a lot to work, and I'm sure we'll refer to this as Ting-Lose at some point, but the disruption might be worth it. Then there's a fun combo with Wo-Chien EX and Forretress EX. You can blow up 2 Forretress EX, accelerate 10 energy into play, Iono your opponent to 2 on turn 2, and snipe 240 with Devouring Ivy. Decks like these are always fun in theory and never really pan out, but think of all the potential. The final treasure of Ruined Pokemon is the Goldfish, Chi-Yu EX. Used in tandem with Magma Basin, Squawkabilly EX, and Radiant Greninja, you could have an energy on 3 different bench Pokemon on your first turn going second. 190 hit points is definitely concerning, but if Chi-Yu can somehow get 2 attacks off, you're probably set up for the rest of the game. Despite the set being called Paldea Evolved, all 3 of the Evolved starters kinda suck. I don't really expect any of them to be in Tier 1 or Tier 2. Part of it has to do with them being Stage 2 Pokemon, the other part is that they're somewhat lacking in power. Meowscarada can ping 3 damage counters and deal 220 damage for 2 energy, so it probably has the most potential. While Skeledurge can deal 270 for 2 energy, but the damage gets decreased for each damage counter on it. Quaquaval also exists. I'm going to play them on stream after the set comes out, and probably delete them after losing 5 games in a row. Similarly, Tinkaton EX, Dedenne EX, and Bellibolt EX all have some use, but aren't great. Tinkaton can be paired with Milotic and a ton of draw to deal big damage. It's just a stage 2 and requires a lot of moving pieces. Dedenne could be thrown into a Gardevoir EX deck to heal off damage, but there's better Pokemon to pair with Gardevoir. And Belly Bolt can be fun with Electric Generator and Flaffy. You'll just need to play a bunch of switch cards and hope your opponent doesn't have any. And that'll do it! In order to craft all the best, most playable cards from Paldea Evolved, you'll only need to spend 10,000 credits. Again, many of these cards are likely going to be in the free decks when the Battle Pass resets on the 8th, so don't worry too much if you're a few thousand credits short. Oh, and one last thing. The Pokemon Company decided to tease the free decks they're giving us with Obsidian Flames in August. The Dark-type Charizard EX deck will be on the basic Battle Pass, while Toedscruel EX will be on the Premium Battle Pass. I'm sure I'll completely forget about this when it comes time to make my next crafting guide.